Welcome, everyone. Kristen, Holly, and I are really excited to be here with you today. Today, we're going to touch on the 3 dementia discussions that you should be having today to maintain your dignity. In this discussion, we're going to cover the 3 topics that you should be discussing with your loved ones right now, especially if you do have a dementia diagnosis. Now, in the next hour, you're going to discover the first steps to take after receiving a dementia diagnosis. You're also going to discover what your care options will be and how you can pay for that care if you need it. We'll be talking about good estate planning documents and why they are so vitally important. And then we'll also be touching on how you can get access to additional resources and support if you need them. Now, this presentation is for you if you're not sure what to do once you receive that dementia diagnosis, or if you're just confused by what your care might look like in the future, or if you're scared of not being able to make your own decisions at some point, or if you're just sick and tired of feeling alone at this stage of life. Now, imagine you had a compass that told you exactly how to navigate through the second half of life and all the issues that might possibly come up in the future. This compass is kind of like a plan that doesn't burden your families, a plan that protects for your spouse and your beneficiaries, a plan that gives you access to others that might be going through the same or a similar situation, but above all, a plan that gives you peace of mind, knowing that you and your family will be taken care of no matter what happens in the future. Believe it or not, this is possible. See what our client Patricia Fry had to say. I'm sure glad I made the call. My husband had experienced some health challenges, so we knew it was the right time to put things in order financially to be properly prepared for the future. The thing I most appreciated was that they listened to what we needed and then provided outstanding guidance throughout the entire process. It was as if they developed a roadmap that we can now follow. They made things so easy. There's no one I would want to take care of us more than these people. Now, before we get too far, let us introduce ourselves. Like Kyle said, I'm Jenna Franks. I'm one of the attorneys at Steinbacher, Goodall, and Yurchak. I work primarily out of our state college location. In this picture, this is my husband, Josh, our daughter, Ava, and our newest addition, Grayson, who's actually about 14 months old now. Now, to give you a little bit more background on me, I actually wanted to be an attorney since the 8th grade. At that point, I always saw an argument for either side of a situation. So basically, I drove my parents crazy because I always played the devil's advocate. But at the end of the day, I wanted to make a difference, and what better way than through the legal system? We lived in Florida where I practiced for about 10 years, and I did practice in several different areas of law at that point, but nothing spoke to me. Then one day we got a phone call that both of our grandparents had been hospitalized at the same time and weren't doing well. We decided at that point it was time to move home and help out. This is Graham and Pat, 2 of the cutest and sweetest older people that I know. They were married over 60 years. I don't know that we'll actually get to see that much more, but they were married for 60 years. This is one of the last happy pictures that we have of them. Graham ended up having dementia. Pap suffered a stroke that made him really weak. They both needed long-term care, but just like most people, they wanted to stay at home as long as possible. Going through this process for my own loved ones, including even living with our grandparents for a year, helped me realize how important planning is so that you have more options. And I know, Holly, you too have dealt with many of these situations. Did you want to introduce yourself next?
Absolutely. So thank you, Jenna. So yes, my name is Holly Reigh, and I'm a licensed practical nurse. And I have had the opportunity to work in skilled facilities, personal care homes, executive director of hospice, and this really allowed me to appreciate the importance of long-term planning. I am also certified in end-of-life care. So again, it just gives me an opportunity to know where people are in this phase of life, My next slide is some pictures of my family. My husband does not like his picture being taken, so I don't have any pictures of him yet, although I'm trying to get him to allow it. But so my family is here. I'm the oldest of actually 6. And so caretaking started with me at a very young age. Actually, when I was 13, I was pulled from high school to leave school to go home and take care of my mom because she just had my youngest sibling and she remained in the hospital for about 6 months. So caretaking started with me at a very young age, which that's why I pursued nursing. And then as I got married and I had children of my own, my husband's mom got diagnosed with kidney failure. And my grandmother also got diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. So at the age of 13, my job in the summertime was to keep her out of trouble and to keep her from wandering outside the home. And sometimes we were successful with that and sometimes we weren't. This is a picture of my grandfather that was just taken in May of this year. It was his 93rd birthday, and that's my son sitting next to him, and he has dementia. And he grew up on a dairy farm, so he always wants to go to the barn. So we are always tasked with redirecting him to remain, safe. We're not going to the barn. And my children have had the opportunity to witness this as well. So it's made them very empathetic. I've been told that a lot for having boys. They're very compassionate and empathetic people, and they truly are. And it's because of their life experiences. So this next slide we created, it talks a little bit about this dementia care journey that many of us have experienced or will experience. Now, I cannot tell you how it feels, but I definitely can relate to the stresses as a caregiver, the worries that happen as a patient, being a nurse, being with many people throughout this process, holding their hands, answering their questions. Again, personal experience with grandparents at this stage. And this is what this journey is all about. And you look at it and you start at the beginning where you're living alone, and everybody's journey is a little different. And we know it's not a path. It's not step 1. It's not step 2. It's all over the place, much like the game of chutes and ladders. You wake up in the morning and you roll the dice and you don't know if it's going to be an okay day, a bad day, a crazy day. Am I going to end up in the ER? So this, again, is just a picture, a snapshot to let you think about what happens. And where you need to be, having these conversations, contacting the doctor, the elder care. What if they wonder? What if they fall? You're going to the ER. What does the ER look like? And everybody's situation is a little different. Some people can't pick up and just go to the ER and spend all day there. What if you have small children at home? Who's going to take care of the children? If you're in the ER, work. What if you work? How are you getting off work? So it's very stressful, and this is real life and real experiences. And the next slide is going to talk about what do I do? And I'm still figuring that out, what I do, because everybody's situation is so different. This isn't cookie cutter. What works for me doesn't work for everybody. What works for you doesn't work for our next client. So what I do is, as a dementia planner, if you come to the firm or you have a dementia diagnosis, and even if you don't have a diagnosis, what if you think you might be going down that path? You don't have to wait for a diagnosis to plan. I'm actually kind of advocate against that. If you think it's happening, start planning. It's not going to hurt anything to start planning. So whether you have a diagnosis or you don't, we're going to set goals. Everybody's goals different. What do you want for you? Let's talk about that. I listen. What are your concerns? What's your dreams? What's your legacies? Guide you through the process. Where are you in the process? Do you have a dementia diagnosis? Is this about you? Is this about a family member? Is this about a neighbor? Where do I need to guide you through this process? Our whole team is here. Where do we need to pick up and start guiding? Advocacy, that's huge. Advocate for what? What's your goals? What do you want? Are we advocating for you at home, in a skilled facility, a personal care home? Are we advocating with you through the doctor's office? Because let's face it, it's a little crazy out there right now. It was crazy before. It's a little crazier now with COVID. Even getting doctor's appointments can sometimes be time consuming and quite the process. Support. What type of support do you need? We're talking about, financial support, emotional support, spiritual support. Where are you in this journey? Let us know, because all of this ties together what your goals are. Assisting in research. What research have you done? What research needs to be done? Again, this goes back to goals. What are your options? So options vary depending on what can you financially afford? What are options available in your community? Do you have to move? Do you need to move closer to a sibling, a family member? We're discussing plans. Again, those plans are medical plans, legal plans, financial plans. Educating. Lots of education needs to constantly be happening. It's not something that's a once and done. We're educating you on the process and what's happening throughout this process. Reviewing resources. Lots of resources are available. Our firm has many resources. We have connections with people in the community with resources inside facilities. So that's a little bit about what a planner does. And we all are planning within the firm. Our whole team is part of the plan. And the purpose of having a planner, myself involved, Kristin involved, and Jenna involved, is that you're not alone in this journey. We all work together. We're here to provide you support throughout the process. Your care is like a big puzzle, and each of us take a piece of that. And we take your pieces and we work on them individually, but then we're bringing your pieces together and forming this puzzle and putting this together for you. So like the attorney Jenna, she'll take a lot of your financial, your power of attorneys and work with them. Kristin does the Medicare planning, and we'll talk about that. And then I'm helping just coordinate everything. So, and we have people in the office that are supporting us and helping getting all of these documentations in place. So this is a difficult time, and you're not alone. And that's what we want you to realize, is that you're not alone. We're here to point you in the right directions. And I'm going to let Kristin explain what her role is, and she's coming up next. So thanks, Kristin.
All right, thanks, Holly and Jenna. So my name's Kristen Dougherty. I am a long-term care planner with Steinbacher, Goodall, and Yurchak. I am also a certified Medicaid planner, one of the few in Pennsylvania, a certified dementia practitioner, and additionally, I am an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care trainer, which allows me to train other professionals in the community to become certified dementia practitioners. I've been with Steinbacher, Goodall, and Yurchak for 10 years, and prior to that, I worked for the Area Agency on Aging for 5 years. This is my family. I have an 11-year-old daughter, Kendall, 6-year-old son, Kyler, and my husband, Kyle. We have a variety of pets, and yes, my kids are redheads, and it seems that all of our pets are as well. We have our dog Chestnut, our cat Sprinkles, who absolutely despise each other. Our cat recently, Jenna's been hearing a lot of my stories, has been bringing us pets every single night. She's been bringing a lot of birds in and some mice and so forth into my daughter's bedroom as presents. So this morning at 3 o'clock, we were all up while she was bringing a bird in. Thankfully, it survived. So we also have horses. We have 5 horses. And my daughter spends a lot of time with them, and she's very involved with 4-H. But how did I get here? How did I get to where I am today? Well, I kind of like to compare it to Alice in Wonderland. I really kind of fell into it. I always knew that I wanted to help people and work with people. So in college, I went into sociology and psychology. I didn't really know where I wanted to go from there, but the Office of Aging was hiring, and I took a chance and applied for the job. Got the job, and I was so glad that I did. I really loved my job at the Office of Aging, going to work every day, helping people. But like many social service agencies, resources, funding, and manpower is very limited. So that's really how I ended up transitioning over to Steinbacher, Goodall, and Yurchak, where I'm able to go above and beyond every single day, doing what I love the most, helping families, protecting spouses, and giving the right advice. I work alongside Jenna to explore options for care, applying for benefits, connecting seniors with resources, and most importantly, advocating for those in need. But the main reason I'm so passionate about what I do is because I can help people like Nancy. Now, I'd love to tell you Nancy's story, but I feel like her testimonial says it all. After my husband went into the nursing home, I went to another law firm in the area to see what could be done about paying for his care. They said there was nothing they could do for me and that I'd have to spend down my money for him to then be eligible to receive Medicaid. I was very concerned and felt they just left me on my own. I later was told to call this law firm. I figured why not, because at this point I had nothing to lose. After explaining my situation, I was told to come in right away because I required immediate attention. What they did for me was unreal, especially after being told I was in a hopeless situation by that other firm. They took action to protect our assets and get my husband's nursing home bills taken care of into the future. Everyone was so wonderful. I'd taken my daughter with me, and when we were told the bills were going to be paid, she cried because she knew what the other lawyer had previously said. I can't say enough about that attention to detail. But today isn't about Nancy. It isn't about any of us. Today is about you. My goal for you today is to give you the tools so you know what you need to do to make sure that you and your loved ones are taken care of during your second half of life. So what are you going to discover? The right information. The discussions that you should be having right now. What care options are available and how to pay for them. The value of having good documents and resources and caregiver supports. We're going to take you from where you are right now to where you want to be. So let's dive in and start with dementia discussion number 1. Are my legal documents in good order? I'm going to turn it back over to Jenna.
Thanks, Kristen. So the first discussion you should be having with your loved ones is whether good legal documents are in place. And typically, typically when we're talking about good legal documents, we're talking about powers of attorney and a last will and testament. For some people, it might also include a trust. But if you get nothing else out of this presentation today, please get this one thing. The most important thing you can do to protect yourself right now is to put good powers of attorney in place. A power of attorney is just a written legal document that appoints someone else to be able to make financial and healthcare decisions on your behalf. But why are they so important? Well, let's talk about the risks of not having them. If you don't have powers of attorney and something happens where you're unable to make your own decisions, then your loved ones must seek what's called a legal guardianship. This is a court process where the family must ask a judge to appoint a guardian to make financial and healthcare decisions on your behalf. The process is costly, it's time consuming, and at the end of the day, you lose control because it's up to the judge to appoint who will be making decisions for you. It may or may not be the person you would appoint for yourself. And believe it or not, even your spouse can't just automatically step in and make financial decisions on your behalf. In fact, the state of Pennsylvania assumes that you don't want your spouse to make financial decisions for you. I always like to give you an example. I don't know if any of you are married and have tried calling like the electric company if it's in your spouse's name. They won't even let you pay the bill if that account is in your spouse's name and you weren't given permission. So you can imagine if there are larger accounts or if there are actually like checking accounts, investment accounts, the company will not talk to you if your name is not on that account. So basically, by not having a power of attorney, you could really limit what your spouse is able to do about finances if a crisis would come up. This could even end up impoverishing your spouse. Now, let's talk about the different types of powers of attorney. The financial power of attorney. This authorizes whoever you want to appoint to make financial decisions on your behalf, basically dealing with bank accounts, handling real estate, and really any asset or income that you have. This also authorizes the person to basically pay your monthly bills, talk to your account holders, talk to the electric company if they need to, anything like that. Unfortunately, not all powers of attorney are created equal. In fact, our office tends to see power of attorney documents that don't include everything that is necessary. For instance, if you do have a financial power of attorney, check it and make sure it authorizes the person to make unlimited gifts and create irrevocable trusts. It can't just say gifting in general or limited gifts, and it can't just say trusts in general. It must say unlimited gifting and irrevocable trusts. Or your power of attorney could be very limited in protecting any of your assets if you do end up needing care in the future. If you do have a power of attorney and you signed it before 2014, it would be a good idea to have an elder law attorney review it to make sure it still includes everything that it should. The reason being is the law changed in 2014. And now, unfortunately, the documents have gotten much longer because the law now says if it's not spelled out in the power of attorney that this person can do something, then basically they're not allowed to do it. So everything has to be spelled out within the document. Nothing is assumed anymore. So if you have a general power of attorney that is maybe 4 to 5 pages long, like everybody used to have, that's probably not enough for your power of attorney to actually be able to do what they need to if something would come up in the future. Next, we have the healthcare power of attorney. This authorizes your power of attorney to make decisions such as who your doctor would be, what hospital or facility you can be treated at, and it should be HIPAA compliant so that your power of attorney can talk to your doctors and access medical records so that they can make good decisions. The mental health power of attorney is a newer document in Pennsylvania. Not a lot of people actually have this document put together just yet. This allows your power of attorney to make decisions such as who your mental health doctor would be, what mental health facilities you can be treated at, and it also addresses treatments that are specific to mental illnesses. For example, at this point, most forms of dementia do not have a cure. So all we have are labs, studies, and medicinal trials to try to slow the progression of the illness. Unfortunately, most of these forms of treatment are experimental. They haven't necessarily been proven yet, so they're sort of in that gray area. For your power of attorney to be able to say yes or no to you being involved in this type of treatment, you must have a mental health power of attorney in place. If you don't, and you're not able to make those decisions yourself, those types of treatments will not be an option. Lastly, we have the living will. This is what people also call the end of life document. But really, this document only applies in special situations. Basically, if you're in a permanent coma, permanent vegetative state, or if you have a terminal condition, so you have about 6 months or less to live. These are end of life situations. If you do find yourself in one of these end of life situations, basically the doctors are saying there's no hope of recovery, no matter what treatments they take. So what this living will addresses is what types of life-sustaining treatments you want if you find yourself in one of those end of life situations, such as do you want breathing machines, feeding tubes, chemo, dialysis. Most clients that we meet with do not want these treatments. And because basically the doctors are saying that they are end of life regardless. These decisions are very personal. So we don't really guide you or tell you, what you should allow and what you shouldn't allow for. The one recommendation that we do have is that you allow for what's called artificial hydration. That's water through an IV so that you can receive pain relieving drugs. That is the one item that we do highly recommend because we don't want to see clients suffering or in pain or anything. Otherwise, all the other types of treatments, like I said, are very personal. So what do you need to do? Your first step is to have the discussion. Do you have the documents that you need? Now is a great time to have any documents that you do have reviewed by an elder law attorney just to make sure that everything is in good order. Elder law attorneys are the attorneys that you will deal with for many of your second half of life situations like retirement, planning for long-term care, planning for passing away. So I would highly recommend that you meet with an elder law attorney to review any current documents that you have now. I would also get good powers of attorney if you don't have them, because remember, this avoids putting your family and your loved ones in a bad situation like that guardianship, impoverishment, or family disputes. John and Denise Satzler were in your shoes before they met with us. Afterwards, they said, "Thank you so very much for the exceptional services. The financial investment we made in your firm is suitable, for we now have peace of mind in regards to our estate planning." And that's really all that we hope for you at the end of the day, is that you also have that peace of mind. All right, next, we're going to pass this over to Holly to discuss the second discussion you should be having if you or a loved one has a dementia diagnosis.
All right, thank you, Jenna. So exactly, what if you have this diagnosis? And I'm back to, again, what if you think there might be some dementia? What if it runs in your family? What if you're noticing some memory loss, changes in the way you or your loved one is taking care of themselves? We're going to be talking about some of the steps, and first and foremost is medical. So what do we do medically to get prepared? Well, first and foremost, you're going to have this conversation with your doctor. Most likely, they will refer you to a specialist. It takes time to get a good, truthful diagnosis of dementia. There's not a test, there's not blood work, there's not an MRI that says, yes, you have dementia. So what's very helpful is when you have these appointments with your doctor, your neurologist, is to go there prepared. And what I mean by prepared is go there with a journal. Start keeping a journal, listing what's happening. Why are you coming to this appointment? Why do you have concerns? Put it in a journal, write down dates, write down times, write down triggers. This is very helpful for a doctor when you come in, or a nurse, when you come in with documentation. You're not just recalling it from your brain because you're busy, you forget things. If you can sit down with a piece of paper and open that up and say, yes, on this date, this happened, that is very helpful. We're starting to paint this picture. We're painting this picture. Why do you think dementia? Why now? What's occurring? Because maybe it is dementia, maybe it's not, because there's some other things that could be happening. Is there some medication concerns? Is there a UTI? Is there some delirium? Maybe this is more of a delirium and not so much of a dementia. So have a list of their medications that they take. Come there with a list. Don't just assume the doctor has the correct list. Many times medications coming from online pharmacies, from different pharmacies, you might be seeing different doctors prescribe different things. So this is also a time to reconcile your medication list. Also come with a list of the conditions, the diagnoses that have been told to you. There have been times where I've had people go to the ER and come back with a dementia diagnosis. And I know that you didn't diagnose the dementia 4 hours in the ER. That can't happen. So you have to be your own advocate. Lab results, if there's been any labs done, again, don't assume that your doctor's office has this. Use this time to come together with all of this information. Maybe they went to the ER and work was done at the ER. Make sure you get copies of all of that information and take it with you. Same with CAT scans or MRIs, anything. More information, the better. That is crucial. And again, if they've been to the ER, making sure that you have those reports. Don't just assume that things happen, things get lost, things are delayed, fax machines break, emails don't work. So you want to make sure you have that. Have a list of, the specialists that they have seen. Have you gone to Hershey Medical Center? Have you gone to Geisinger? If you went there, who did you see? Have the list. Have the name of the person. Have the person's name spelled correctly. Make sure you come there with all of this information. Information also, do you have people coming into your home helping right now? Do you have private caregivers coming in? If so, what is that schedule? If they're coming in, what are they doing? Again, this helps paint the picture for the doctor to say, okay, well, somebody's coming in to help them prepare their food. That's a concern. That may not just be a UTI. We might be really onto something different. So have all of that information in place. Also, what you have to be thinking about too is some like just emergencies that could occur. We're having these thunderstorms. What if you lose electricity? What if your loved one watches TV at night and that helps calm them down? What if you have air conditioning and now you don't have electricity and your loved one is triggered by getting overheated? What are you going to do in a situation like that? So be thinking about this. So you're also coming up with like getting ready for doctor's appointments, doing some emergency preparedness, have a plan in place at home. There's a lot of moving pieces and you have to be thinking about everything all over the place, and it can get very stressful. One thing that we see a lot is caregiver burnout. The caregivers do such a great job at taking care of their loved ones, and then they start neglecting themselves. And that's not helpful for anyone. If the caregiver ends up getting sick, ill, falls, now we have a huge crisis. And so we want to prevent that. We know that we always can't, but those are some medical concerns. Again, I could talk to you for 8-10 hours about how to do this and what to be thinking about. But those are just some ideas. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to put them in the chat window. Next, there's some legal concerns, which Jenna already spoke about, and you definitely need to make sure that you have all of those power of attorney documents that Jenna spoke about in place. Because even if you get to the ER and the doctor wants to do a test and your loved one or yourself doesn't have the capacity to answer those questions, if you don't have the paperwork in place, you're stuck. So things change. So first and foremost, all of those legal documents that Jenna spoke about, if you get nothing else, make sure those documents are in place, they're current, review those documents. I've had people, have their documents done, and because of divorce, separation, children change, they move, that's not what they want now. So just because you have them in place, you also need to be reviewing them and making adjustments accordingly to your condition and where you are in life. And then you also have the financial and tax concerns. And once again, our team works with you on that, where are your financial needs, tax concerns, where are you at in life, how old are you when you get this diagnosis, what type of planning have you done, retirements, you name it. We kind of bring all of this together and we sort it out. And we put this plan together for you, because nobody is the same. That's the one thing. Definitely, we do not work with any situation that is the same. It just doesn't happen. So next slide is like, what makes us a dementia-friendly law firm? This is something that we started working toward and will continue to do so. It's always changing and always adjusting. So sometimes you will come into the firm to sign paperwork. Sometimes we come to you because of COVID. Sometimes we've been even meeting in the parking lot. So once again, dementia is very individualized. So first and foremost, if you're coming in with yourself or your loved one and they have dementia, and you know of any triggers that they don't like or things that calm them down, make sure you let somebody at our team know this, so we can make that happen and we can set up that environment so it's a little more friendlier for you or your loved one that has these type of triggers. So for example, like in the conference room, we tried to remove the clutter, make it less cluttered. An amplifier in there, some white noise, sometimes that's helpful to people to have that on. If we know somebody's coming in that has a dementia diagnosis, we're going to let other staff know to maybe keep it quiet. Do we need to dim lights? Sometimes dimming lights is very important. We have name tags now that are bigger and bolder letters that really just say our first name, because that's what's important. So making sure that that person can read our name tags. We're looking at colors too. Sometimes, like mats on a floor, it could look like a hole. So we're removing mats, we're changing colors so the person can see that it's not a hole and it is a safe environment. We're also changing wording. A person with dementia, we're using abbreviations like PWD. We're being careful on how we talk, on our approach. Sometimes you just don't want to come straight forward. They may think you're hitting them. You don't want to reach your hand out for a handshake. That could startle them and they could think that you might be hitting them. So again, this is having conversations with the loved ones so we know how to approach them. We do have Y pens in the office. You can Google those. Those are shaped like a Y, and it's very helpful for somebody with dementia because they're able to hold that pen a little easier and to make signatures. We do have a podcast channel that talks to people, that we'll send you to help you prepare for your meeting when you have to come into the law office. And even just with the intake form and talking to you when you come into the office, we're going to be prepared to have you there and to know how we can help. Even, as silly as this may sound to us, the temperature of water. Do they like it cool? Do they like it more room temperature? Is there a cup that they prefer to drink out of? It may sound silly, but sometimes if you set the environment up, we might come out to the car and grab the cup for you and bring it in and have it ready to go. So we're presenting that to them. So once again, it's communication is the key. Communicate to us so we can make your visit a lot less stressful. And
hey,
our next
Holly.
one, yes.
Holly, a question come through in the chat. I don't know if I throw the question to you or if Jenna can jump into, but what can you do if a spouse won't admit they have a problem and is creating havoc in the family and you have no power of attorney, etc.?
That's a tough one, I'll be honest. And we do see situations, and Kristen and Holly, feel free to add your perspectives in here as well. But I actually, I'm going through this personally. I have a grandfather who was recently diagnosed with dementia, aside from the grandparents I showed you guys. But I think that's, one of the first stages for a lot of people when they first get that dementia diagnosis is they're in denial or they're irritated about it. I think part of that is they're also scared to actually be going through that. My advice, and this is more from a personal level than like a legal level, I think over time it might set in. So I would keep trying to talk to them, and try to come up with a plan that will work for everybody. What I've found personally is that over time they kind of calm down, they kind of come to terms with it, and eventually they will be willing to accept the fact that they do have that diagnosis and something needs to be done about it. Holly and Kristen, do you guys have anything to add on that?
Yeah. You want to go first, Kristen?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's really tricky. A lot of times what we find is that while it's really hard for the families to have that conversation, if the person themselves realizes that there's something going on, they don't want to talk about it, but they also don't want to leave their family unprepared for it. So if they can at least get into our door and we can have that harder conversation, and it's really superficially, especially in a spousal situation, we're going to handle it. A lot of times we get phone calls, mom and dad need to come in, dad just diagnosed dementia. He doesn't want you to talk about it. So we're going to address it like, well, if either of you have a diagnosis, this is what's going to happen. This is what we need to do right now. So once they get into our door, we can have that conversation delicately. But it is really tricky having that ahead of time. Like Jenna, I'm dealing with that with my dad right now too. Like he's very limited on what he'll let us help with. And I'm like, this is what I do every day, Dad. But it's still hard for him to see that, as he's going through his health issues.
Yes. And one thing that could happen is there's an event that triggers an event that would trigger reaction. So example, a fall, something that takes them to the ER, something that takes them to the doctor's office. We notice a lot where driving is one of the independence that people want to maintain that they don't want to give up. So sometimes something happens with the driving, whether it's a ticket, an accident, and we hope it's nothing serious, that nobody's hurt or killed. We don't want that. but many times you'll find there's an event that triggers a response and people will get involved. So like Jenna and Kristin said, is you can have, have a free consultation, and we make those we have that harder conversation with you about that. And one thing also, you want to definitely start sooner than later, because they have to have the capacity to sign their documents, and that's what Jenna assesses. So you want to make sure that you're moving in a direction so you get involved sooner, so they have those capacities to sign those documents, which leads me into my next slide, is maybe coming to a support group with you or your loved one would be a good way to just connect and start bringing information in without throwing it in their face, so to speak. Use an event in the community. Is there a member of your community that this has happened to? A friend, a family, somebody from church, somebody from work? Casually bring it up. It's not like you sit down across the table and say, hey, listen, you have dementia, we're talking about this. You could be something like, hey, Larry from church, or Larry from the golf club, his wife went into the hospital because she fell, and it leads it into, so it's a soft way to talk about this, which can lead into support groups where there are other people there that are experiencing this too. So currently we have a support group that's offered the second Tuesday of each month. Right now it's currently done virtual. It's subject to change. Everything in life is subject to change. We're trying to determine if that's the best time. If anybody has suggestions, advice, happy to hear it. Is there a time that works best for you? We are going to be going in person, but virtual is something that's always going to exist from here on out, especially with somebody caring for somebody with dementia. It might make more sense to have a virtual meeting because you're not worried about transportation and finding a caregiver. You can click on the internet right wherever you're at and participate and get some support through a support group. The next slide talks about free resources. We have lots of resources available, so many to speak about. You can go to our Facebook page or our website. We have podcasts. We have a YouTube channel with lots of information. You can reach out to me. I can send you information. The staff can send you information. We have books about being a caregiver with dementia. You have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, living, you name it, we talk about. We have a guide about caring. Communication is huge. How to communicate with your loved one. We participate in a group called Adult Children Caring for Aging Parents that meets once a month. And we're talking about different topics, not just dementia, but once again, that's a good support group to get to. And knowledge is power. Of course, everybody can Google. Got to be careful what you Google and what you read, because it's not always truthful, but there are a lot of good websites out there that give you information. Social media, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. Feel free to join a support group via social media. Once again, you have to be careful what you're reading and also where the person is from, because they might be at it from a different state and rules change state to state. We have action plans that are available. An action plan is a checklist, sort of gives you an overview, things to think about, starting to have these conversations. As I mentioned before, we have the YouTube channel, and there is a mini series involved there. That could be, once again, a way to get your loved one to maybe watch it without pointing to them, hey, listen, you need to see this because the doctor's talking about dementia. Even one of our books, we've had a family that did that. We dropped off 3 or 4 of the books, and the family member just left them sit around the house, and they realized later that their loved one was reading it. So they were getting information, but it wasn't directly, right in their face. So you can just gently leave like breadcrumbs so they're able to read this information on their own terms. There are resources available through every county. Center County has a great resource guide. I call it the Green Book. Every county has the Office of Aging. We have connections with all of the agencies. We have connections with all of the facilities, whether it's personal care, the skilled nursing facilities, that are Medicaid approved, those that are not. So basically, If you have a question, you need some resources, let us know. We'll definitely be able to point you in a direction. Now, Kyle, I see some things have popped up in the chat. Is there anything that needs to be addressed right now before I turn it over to Kristen?
Yeah, sure. Question here. What advice about meds to help with agitation and sundowning? What meds are most commonly prescribed? Are there any to avoid?
Yeah, and just before you jump in there, Holly, because I know Holly's going to have some interesting things to say because she's a nurse. But I just want to kind of disclaimer, we are not able to give out any medical advice. So Holly kind of will give some general information, but we definitely would recommend seeing a specialist to be able to really get the right diagnosis. And sorry, Holly, I'm probably speaking for you here, but really getting the right diagnosis is going to lead to the right treatment. One thing we always say is your primary care physician's great for to kind of start with, but you really need to be working with a specialist to get that right diagnosis. With so many different forms of dementia, they're all treated so differently. So Holly, I'll stop there and let you add anything else.
No, and that's exactly what I was going to say, because you have to paint the whole picture. So it's not really good. We can't give medical advice because we don't have the whole picture. Are they on other medications? Absolutely, they could be. So one could counteract another one. They could have allergies. We're not sure what the allergies are. So these are all conversations to have with your doctor. And like Kristen mentioned, what type of dementia? If it's frontal lobe, it's different. If it's Lewy body, it's different. So everything is different. Is it a dementia related to a stroke, to TIAs? So those are all treated differently. Everybody responds to medication differently. So definitely that is a good question when you go into your doctor to ask those questions and say, because many times people say this, well, my neighbor takes this. Can my loved one have this? Well, take that in and ask your doctor. Start with that information. And once again, I'm big on just writing it down. Go in with a piece of paper, go back to old school, piece of paper, a pen and a pad, and have your questions down and have them answer the questions. And feel free to say to the doctor, the nurse, can you slow that down? Spell it out for me. You have to be your own advocate, and you can slow it down and make sure that you go there with your questions and then you leave there with them answered. All right, so Kristen's up next. So thank you.
Okay, great. All right. So we're going to shift gears, kind of going into our last topic that we're going to discuss today, which is what care options are available and how do you pay the bills if you need care? And I really love talking about this, and more importantly, because we're really lucky in our area that we have a variety of ways that you can receive care. So care choices range anywhere from in-home care to facility care with options in between. Of course, most of us want to stay home no matter what, which is great as long as it's practical and it's safe. There are agencies that can provide in-home care services, or you also have the option to hire individuals on your own. Now, if you need some socialization or your loved one needs some socialization, or you as the caregiver need some respite, there are other options like adult day centers that are available to help provide a little bit of additional help so your loved one can stay home. However, as we know, at times, in-home care is just not enough and some type of facility placement is going to be necessary. Placement options range from independent living through skilled nursing facilities. Now, I want to share a little bit about each of these different levels of care. Let's start with personal care homes, which are otherwise known as senior living communities. And realistically, if you've heard the term assisted living, they're really lumped into this category as well. So these are a great option for somebody who needs some supports outside of their home. This is a facility where you reside in, and they provide meals, medications, some supervision, activities, and some assistance with medical needs, personal care needs, and possibly even memory support based on the facility and what they offer. Now, these communities can range anywhere from $3,000 a month to $8,000 or maybe even more a month based on what they're providing for you. Now, memory care facilities are a great option for those who have memory impairments, but otherwise are healthy. These facilities really focus on memory enhancing activities, therapies, while meeting their residents' needs and providing a safe and secure environment. Skilled nursing facilities are the highest level of care, providing that care for the most medically or cognitively impaired individuals. Now, right now in Pennsylvania, skilled nursing home on average is over $11,000 a month, which is over $132,000 each year. Continuing care retirement communities typically encompass all of these levels of care, starting at independent living, also having personal care level, all the way through skilled. Now, continuing care retirement communities are a great option for those who want to age in place. We also see a lot of spousal situations in continuing care retirement communities where one spouse needs more care than the other. Now, continuing care retirement communities generally only accept private pay, and the cost can really range based on the community and the level of care that you or your loved one needs. Many continuing care retirement communities also have a large buy-in. Now, what I will say, based on continuing care retirement communities, that's a mouthful, is that everyone really is different. If you have to buy in or not, what happens if you run out of money, how much the monthly rent costs. So if that's something that interests you, it's really important to explore those communities to make sure it's realistic, because these types of communities aren't right for everybody. So let's switch gears then and talk about how do you actually pay for care. So of course, anybody can privately pay for care. But as I mentioned, skilled nursing homes on average $11,000 a month in Pennsylvania. So you could quickly become impoverished paying for your care out of your own pocket. If you're a veteran, a spouse, or a widow of a veteran, you may be eligible to receive the aid and attendance pension benefit through the Veterans Administration. This is a benefit that can pay up to around $2,000 a month if you meet the medical and financial criteria for the program. There's long-term care insurance, which is a great option. Every long-term care insurance policy works a little bit differently, so you need to make sure you know what your policy covers if you need care. For instance, what type of care does it cover? Does it cover in-home care? Does it cover facility care? Does it cover both? How much is the daily benefit? With the average daily cost of skilled nursing home care over $360 daily, a policy that covers only $100 a day isn't going to be good enough on its own. Let's talk a little bit about Medicare. Medicare. So most Medicare recipients think that they will receive 100 days of Medicare coverage annually if they go into a nursing home. Unfortunately, that's generally just not true. Medicare was designed as a short-term solution to pay for long-term care in the nursing home. It covers up to 100 days annually. The key words, up to. Most individuals only receive around 20 days of coverage. So you can see why it's really important to have other options in place to help pay for your care. Lastly, let's talk about Medicaid. As I mentioned earlier, I'm one of the few, certified Medicaid planners in Pennsylvania. I could talk to you about Medicaid all day long, but I would definitely put you to sleep, and I'm sure you have other things to do while it's finally not raining outside. But did you know that most residents in nursing homes are actually covered under Medicaid? And you might be thinking, but wait, isn't Medicaid an impoverishment program? Don't I have to be poor to qualify for Medicaid? And yeah, it is an impoverishment program, but there are strategies that we can help you implement to get qualified for Medicaid and protect assets from the nursing home. There's even a Medicaid program that helps pay for in-home care. So we've talked a little bit about what types of care are available, what options there are to pay for care. But if you do end up in a situation where you need care, you're in a nursing home, what can the nursing home force you to use to pay for your care? What assets are available? And realistically, almost everything. This includes bank accounts, CDs, investments, cash values of life insurance policies, retirement accounts, real estate, pretty much everything that you own. And guess what? If you're married, your spouse's assets are also available to pay for your long-term care. So what can you do to protect your spouse? We're pretty lucky here in Pennsylvania. We have fair spousal impoverishment rules and can protect most everything for the spouse that doesn't need care. But we have to go back to what Jenna talked about earlier. If you are in a situation where one spouse needs care and you do not have good powers of attorney in place, we may be limited and we may not be able to protect anything. So we always say the most important thing that you can do right now is make sure that you have good legal documents in place, because we never want you to be in a situation where one spouse is going to become impoverished paying for the other spouse's long-term care. What about your house? So for most of us, our house is our most valuable asset. So there are options to protect your house as long as you do proper planning to put those strategies in place. There's even ways to protect your house from long-term care, even if you didn't plan ahead of time and need care right now. Now, keep in mind, the options look a lot different and they might not be as wonderful as if you planned ahead, but there's still likely options even if you need care right now. It's really important to make sure that you put a plan together for your house, because if you do not, and your house stays in your name and you need nursing home care or Medicaid benefits, the state of Pennsylvania is going to claim against your house to the extent they paid for your care. So how do you protect your assets? Well, honestly, every single plan is different. It really depends on your goals, your family situation, where you're receiving care, how much care is needed, your assets, and your income. There are many variables that we need to take into consideration while we are putting a plan in place. We always like to compare it to a puzzle. We have to put the entire puzzle together to make sure that we're doing a good job. If we're missing any pieces to the puzzle, we have an incomplete plan. Now, there's many tools that we use to protect assets, but the two that most people have heard of are irrevocable trust and Medicaid compliant annuities. Now, we're not going to talk too much about these tools today, but I will tell you that in most every plan that we implement, we use irrevocable trust or Medicaid compliant annuities, or a combination of both. So I just mentioned irrevocable trust and Medicaid compliant annuities. So you might be wondering, but wait a second, how can we make gifts? How can we put things in a trust? How can we purchase an annuity and then qualify for Medicaid benefits? Isn't there some type of look back? And yes, there is a 5-year look back when you apply for Medicaid. This is the 5-year period prior to your Medicaid application being filed. During this 5 years, the state wants to ensure that you have not gave away any assets over $500 a month. Now, this is really important and most people don't realize. The gifting rules for Medicaid is anything over $500 a month creates a gift, not $15,000, not $12,000. Those are tax gifting rules. For Medicaid purpose, a gift is anything over $500 a month. Now, if you have made gifts, the state's going to total the gifts that you've made in the last 5 years and issue a period of ineligibility. So I just want to clarify something. Just because you've made gifts doesn't necessarily mean you have to wait 5 years to ask Medicaid to pay for your nursing home care. But, and this is a big but, there is a process and it has to be done perfectly to start the penalty for the ineligibility period for gifts within the last 5 years. This is not something that you can do on your own. This is something that's really tricky and very timely. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you gave away $100,000. It can be a property valued at $100,000. It can be a check for $100,000. The state of Pennsylvania is going to say, okay, you've made a gift for $100,000. We're not going to pay for your care for 9 months. How we determine that penalty is by taking the gift of $100,000, dividing it by the average cost of care in Pennsylvania, which is just over $11,000. That's 9 months the state of Pennsylvania is not going to pay for your care. Now, if you have enough other funds to privately pay for your care for 9 months, then you can protect the gift, but privately pay for your care for those 9 months. Now, there's a lot of stuff that actually has to happen in there. You can't just say, I'm going to pay for my care. There's a lot of other strategies, but to give you an example. But, and here's a big but. What if you do not have enough money to pay through the gifting penalty? Let's say you give your house away, it was your only asset, and you gave it to your kid, and your kid says, I'm not giving the house back. Then what happens? Well, there's a lot at risk. First, you're not going to qualify for Medicaid. You're likely not even going to be admitted into a facility. They're businesses. They want to guarantee that they're going to be paid. And also filial responsibility, which means that your children can be held legally responsible to pay for your nursing home bills. I don't know many people who would want to put their children in that position. Now, lastly, we must mention that we do not recommend outright gifting to individuals, even though they're probably wonderful people and we love them very much. And this is because the 4 Ds: divorce, debt, disability, or death. Let me give you an example. You gift that $100,000 to your son and he gets divorced. Well, now it's part of the divorce settlement. You gift $100,000 to your son and he has creditors. Well, now it's available to his creditors. $100,000 to your son and he becomes disabled or is disabled. Well, he may not qualify for the benefits that he needs. Or, God forbid, you give $100,000 to your son and he passes away before you. What happens to that money? Does he have a will in place? Where does it go? Even more important, if it's real estate and your child passes away before you, what's going to happen with that house, especially if you're still living in it? So what if we didn't plan ahead and care is needed today? And this is really a great question, and it's important to know that even if you need care right now, it's likely not too late. Okay, let me say it again. Even if you need care right now, it's likely not too late. Many families think that once they need in-home or nursing home care, it's too late and they cannot do anything to protect their spouses, their children, their beneficiaries, and their assets. That's simply not true. Almost always, there are still options, especially in spousal situations. In fact, it's even more important in spousal situations to work with an elder law firm if one spouse needs care and the other does not. We would never, ever, ever want the spouse that doesn't need care to worry about becoming impoverished, losing their home, or not being able to pay their bills. Now, when you or a loved one receive a diagnosis, it's scary, it's overwhelming. Often, as we mentioned before, we don't want to talk about it to anybody, let alone plan for it. However, it's more important than ever at that point to plan for what's going to happen throughout the diagnosis. This is a really difficult time, but we're here to help navigate through this process. As a law firm that focuses on elder law and dementia, we have the knowledge and expertise to focus on planning for your second half of life. We don't dabble in divorces or other areas of law because we want to focus on everything that you need for every stage of your second half of life and the diagnosis. A lot of other law firms say they do elder law, but they just slap it on their sign and they don't do it well. They focus on other things, but they think, well, we'll try this. That's such a disservice. You need to work with an elder law firm that does this all day, every day. Now, if you've worked with us in the past, if you've listened to any of our seminars, I'm sure that you have heard or are hearing now how dedicated and passionate we really are about doing what we do. We love helping families. We love working with our clients every day to help them navigate this difficult time. Now, navigating benefits, options for care, and knowing what to do is really confusing. So what can you do? Put a plan in place. By putting a plan in place, you control what happens if you need care, who makes decisions for you, and ultimately the outcome. Now, I know everything we talked about today is a little overwhelming and even a little scary, but think about this. Do you somebody else making these decisions for you? Do you want to burden your family by not having the conversation or not having a plan put in place? Of course not. Let's go back to Nancy. Nancy didn't have a plan. She was told that there was nothing that could be done. She was hopeless and felt like nobody was on her side. Now, thankfully, her friend told her to call us and we were able to jump into action to help her. But what if her friend didn't tell her to call us? She would have lost everything: her house, her income, her assets, and probably her will to keep moving forward every day. Do you have a friend like Nancy's? Maybe, but maybe not. Do you want to leave it up to chance? Of course not. So what do you have to lose? Think about that for a moment. What do you have to lose? Now, while you think about what you have to lose by not putting a plan in place, let's go over what we've discovered today. What discussions you should have once you receive a dementia diagnosis. What options you have for care and how to pay for that care. What happens if you do not have good estate planning documents, and how to reach out to others for help and support. After everything we've talked about today, I hope that you get this one thing. Planning ahead is essential to make sure that your family is taken care of and that you do not spend any more than necessary on long-term care. How do you make that happen? How do you get from where you are right now to where you want to be? By scheduling a dementia care strategy session, taking the next step by scheduling this dementia care strategy session. And what is that? How does it work? It's a 1-hour strategy session via Zoom or a telephone call with our office. During that hour, we're going to ensure your estate planning documents are in good order, develop a plan for your second half of life. Plus, we will answer all of the questions you have about your unique situation. At the end of our time together, you will know what documents you need, you will know your options for Alzheimer's and dementia care, and you will have peace of mind knowing that you and your loved ones will be ready for the challenges of tomorrow. After our meeting, we will develop a written plan with recommendations, work with you to implement the plan, prepare any and all legal documents, and most importantly, we'll walk you through this process from start to finish. So you might be wondering, well, what does this cost? Well, because you're here today, you are thinking about this. You're thinking about your future. So we are going to offer a free strategy session. This is normally almost a $500 value, but we feel like it's important that you've taken the time out of your day to be here to listen to us today. So this strategy session, this 1 hour with our office, is free. But what's the catch? Well, honestly, there's really not any catches, except I will say that Jenna and I right now are scheduling into September. So we have added times on our calendar to meet with you much sooner because we know you're thinking about this and you're motivated and we want to work with you to figure out a plan. So what do you do? So you're here, you're thinking about this, you need to book your strategy session right now. And I can't see the chat box, but I saw it light up. So I know Kyle just put in there the link, chatwithsgy.com. So all you have to do is click on that link. It's going to take you to our website where all you have to do is select which office, Williamsport or State College, you want to meet with. Select your date, your time, put your name, contact information. It's going to pop up on my calendar. It's going to be there. It's that easy to schedule your strategy session. Also, you can always call our offices if you prefer to do that. I know I love the option just to click and take care of it right from my computer. We'd like to make it as easy as possible. So remember, we're going to talk to you about what documents you need. You will know your options for Alzheimer's and dementia care, and you're going to have peace of mind knowing that you and your loved ones will be better prepared for the challenges of tomorrow. Again, this is what the website looks like. You're going to go to chatwithsgy.com. If if we log out of here and you want to think about this later, go ahead. Kyle's going to send you a follow-up email with the link so you can click on it later. Again, you can call us. It comes automatically to my calendar, and I actually have my calendar pulled up and I see some things popping up. So obviously some of you are thinking about this, that this makes sense for you. So again, chatwithsgy.com or call our office to schedule your strategy session so we can get started on your dementia planning and getting that plan in place today.